Hello everyone. So for this week, we will discuss data analysis and presentation. We will start first with qualitative analysis, and here are some general considerations when doing qualitative analysis. No? Analyzing qualitative data is actually a labor-intensive activity because it requires some sense of creativity, no? Conceptual sensitivity, and hard work. Analyzing qualitative data requires you to read large bulk of text, looking in being sensitive on what's the content, no? What are the concepts being shared, no? Or being found on your qualitative data, okay? And it's more complex than what you think, no? It's more complex than doing a quantitative analysis because in in qualitative analysis, no, this is less formulaic. Hindi ka gagamit ng formula, hindi ka gagamit ng statistical test, hindi ka gagamit ng frequency distribution table whatsoever. Okay? Because it's less structured, no? Hindi na nga structured yung data mo, hindi pa structured yung pag-a-analyze mo. So it requires some creativity on your part and being sensitive on the concepts that are found, no, in your text, in your qualitative data. Okay? Gaya nga na sinabi ko, there are no universal rules, no, for analyzing and summarizing qualitative data. At dahil nga ikaw ay naggagawa or nag-handle ng qualitative data, you are dealing with text. It will require you, no, to record, transcribe, read, and reread, and revalidate whatever you have found out, you have collected from your respondents. Okay? So, minsan, sa pag-handle ng qualitative data, sobrang lawak ng kanyang scope. No? Na kapag pinresent mo siya in your paper, no, parang mapapansin mo, you reduce your data so that you can report it concisely. Now, the problem in reducing your data into smaller blocks, into themes, minsan nawawala yung richness ng data. No? Pag sinabing richness, yun yung nandun yung context, nandun yung evidence, no? Nandun yung value, no, ng usapan. No? Kapag sinulat mo na siya into minimal themes, no? Into minimal concepts, nawawala or nababawasan yung richness. So it also requires you to be sensitive on that part, no, on how you will present, no, that data na kapag kinaikli, no, meaningful pa rin. Now, according to Crabtree and Miller, there are 3 prototypes in analyzing your qualitative data. So these are the styles according to Crabtree and Miller. It's like looking, no? These prototypes can be viewed in a continuum. On the one side or on the right side, no, is the structured analysis style, no? While on the other side or the left side, this refers to your least structured analysis style, no? So let's now discuss the structured one. The structured analysis of qualitative data is what you call your template analysis style, no? Because in this method, you develop a template or category and analysis guide for sorting your narrative data. Bago ka pa mag-immerse, bago ka pa magbasa, magre-read ng iyong data, meron ka ng template or category. Kumbaga may hinahanap ka na doon sa data mo. Okay? Now, template analysis style is not so rigid. What do I mean? It means that your template analysis style can still evolve, no? in terms of its categories, meanings, no? As you undergo, no? As you undergo your data analysis habang binabasa mo siya. So habang binabasa mo yung data mo at may na-encounter kang bagong term, bagong concept, idadagdag mo ngayon yan sa template analysis mo. Okay? So after doing the template analysis, uulitin mo na naman siya to validate the contents, etc. Usually ginagamit ang ganitong prototype in ethnography, ethology, or discourse analysis. While in editing analysis style, okay, you start first, no, as a blank template. Wala ka munang template bago mo siya babasahin. So you read your paper, okay? And if you identify some segment of your paper, of your data, to have patterns and structures, that's the time you create your data. No? So, it's like, basa ka muna bago ka maggawa ng ng template. Okay? Now, this is usually used in grounded theory, phenomenology, and hermeneutics. While the immersion or crystallization style involves your total immersion in and reflection of text materials, resulting in intuitive crystallization of data. In this form of analysis style, the most subjective one, as you may say, you are required, no, to dive in, no, and reflect on the meaning of your narratives. Kung sa editing analysis style, kung may napansin ka lang patterns, kung may napansin ka as objective na objectively, no, that's that's the concept, no, yun yung framework ng editing analysis style at ng template analysis. But in immersion style, no, wala ka nung mga yon. Okay? It is based upon your reflection of the it's your personal reflection of the data that you have gathered. Okay? Kaya po tinatawag na kino-consider po na ito na as interpretative and subjective style, no, of qualitative data analysis. Ginagamit po ito in personal case reports or those who are semi-anecdotal nature, no? And this is less frequently used in nursing research. Okay? Now, aside from the prototype, we have to be cognizant, no? We have to recognize, no, the four cognitive processes na nag-i-involve, no, when you do qualitative analysis. What does it mean? Ito yung mga proseso, no, ng pag-iisip na pwedeng mong magamit, no, or kadalasang ginagamit sa pag-analyze ng qualitative data para ikaw ay maging matagumpay, no? For you to be successful in analyzing your data. Now, these four cognitive processes is proposed by Morse and Field, where they said that there are four cognitive processes. What are those? The first one is what you call your comprehending process. No? In this process, you make sense of the data. No? Iniintindi mo. You try to understand what's going on with your data. The next step or the next stage is your synthesizing process, where you sift your data and you inductively put it into pieces. No? Sa madaling salita, it's like connecting your puzzles, no, in the synthesizing phase. You try to make sense sa una, you try to connect naman ngayon in synthesizing. Now, the next step in cognitive process or the next cognitive process na ginagamit in analysis of qualitative data is your theorizing, no? Where you systematically sort your data according to some sort of theory, no? Kumbaga, you try to make it sensible with a scientific explanation. Okay? Again, this is a usual process in qualitative data analysis, no? Kasi kapag sinabing quantitative data, magti-theory ka muna, saka ka magko-collect ng data. Kabaliktaran kapag qualitative analysis, no? Tignan mo muna yung data, saka mo siya i-connect ngayon sa teorya. Okay? Kasi you try to induce, no, inductively think, no, of what you have collected from your respondents. Okay? And when you are done doing theorizing your data, you try to recontextualize, no? That's the fourth cognitive processes, or apply your findings to other settings or groups, no? Tina-transfer mo, dito na papasok yung transferability or yung pag-transfer ng iyong findings to other settings na similar sa setting mo. Now, qualitative data involves several concepts, no, in management and organization. The first management of qualitative data is to transcribe it, no? Isusulat mo verbatim yung mga data na nakuha mo through interview. Okay? So, the first step to manage your data is to transcribe it. Okay? So, in transcribing, you do your best, no, to write everything that has been spoken by the interviewer and the interviewee. No? However, when you do that, it's difficult because there's a natural tendency for us to omit something. No? Example, if we heard some bad words, no, from a from an interview, we encountered bad words in an interview, and we try to sanitize the content of our transcript, no, interview transcript. Pag sinabing sanitize, aalisin mo yung hindi maganda. Okay, that's a deliberate alteration of data because you deliberately remove, no, a part of that conversation, well, in fact, it contributes to the context nung 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 pinag-usapan ninyo. So that's deliberate alteration. Inaalis mo kasi tingin mo hindi maganda, well, in fact, dapat kasama 'yon kasi that gives richness to your data. Okay? Another type of alteration is yung accidental alteration of data. For example, no, yung mga contractions ng mga salita, okay? Yung mga common contractions natin ng salita, no? Yung tapos nagiging tas, no? Yung ano nagiging no. Okay? Yung bakit nagiging but, no? If we do not if we fail to transcribe those ng tama, okay? 'Di ba kapag sinabing but na contraction is BA apostrophe T. Okay? Pero nilagay lang natin but, BAT. So that's an accidental alteration of the word bakit. No? Nagtatanong pala siya ng bakit, ang na-type mo but, naging paniki kapag binasa. So that's accidental alteration of data. Nag-iiba dahil you failed to transcribe what is really said during that time. So we have to be careful when doing that. Okay? Another is yung tinatawag na unavoidable alteration. These are alterations that you cannot avoid to remove from your transcription. Ano-ano ang mga ito? Kapag umiyak yung respondent mo. Kahit na ilagay mo sa loob ng iyong transcript na siya ay crying, no? Na siya ay umiyak, okay? Hindi masusukat sa sinulat mo yung emosyon during the time na siya ay umiyak sa interview mo. Pero wala kang magagawa kasi hindi mo masusulat yung pag-iyak niya ng buong buo. Tama ba? So that's one. Another unavoidable alteration is kapag ka nagkaroon ng technical problems in recording. 'Di ba? Kasi aalisin mo 'yun dahil hindi naman siya meaningful. Well, in fact, the technical alteration, baka meron pang nangyari doon sa part na 'yon. So those are some errors in transcribing qualitative data. Another type or another method in managing your qualitative data is to develop a category scheme. A category scheme is a is actually an index, no? Palatandaan. It's actually an index of the common concepts that recur or occur inside your data, your qualitative data. So for example, one person or one of your respondents say siya ay nagugutom and the other respondent would say hindi pa ako nakakakain, kahit magkaiba yung kanilang mga sinabi, pero kapag inanalyze mo naman, magfo-fall into one category, no? That category is your category scheme, no? So that way, you try to summarize the contents of your qualitative data by use of an index which is your category. Okay? The next type of qualitative data management procedure is yung tinatawag na coding qualitative data. No? Kino-code mo siya so that you can easily retrieve a part of your qualitative data pag ni-recall mo na kung ano yung mga sinabi doon. Okay? Now, when you organize your coded data by developing conceptual files, it's like writing an index card, no? Kung ano yung mga sinabi. Okay? What does it mean? When you find something in a certain statement, no, you try to develop a conceptual card. Sa conceptual card na yon, that's an index card where you write the specific statement, no, na magfo-fall under that concept. So that kapag ni-review mo na siya ulit, no, kapag sisa-summarize mo na siya, makikita mo na ito yung mga concepts doon sa loob ng qualitative data. Well, that's an old method, no? Old but effective method. Pero may iba na gumagamit ng computer programs, no? To perform an indexing function and facilitate data analysis, no, ng qualitative data. So instead na index card, ang ginagamit naman computer programs. Okay? So tandaan na ang mga conceptual files na ito ay nag-e-employ ng quasi-statistic method. What does it mean? It's like a statistic pero binibilang mo yung number of statements at yung mga pertinent statements, no, to back up the category that you have developed. Okay? So kung mapapansin din in data management and organization, ang qualitative data, it employs, no, a reductionist paradigm. Pag sinabing reductionist paradigm, you try to reduce your large volume of data into smaller or more convenient units para mas madali mong ma-present yung datos mo, no, your data. So here's an example of coding scheme, okay? So this one is an example of a research of Polit, no? She used a coding scheme for food insecurity, hunger in lower income families. So here are the codes, no? Yung codes dinevelop out of the themes, okay? The themes were done uh, were identified during the review of qualitative data na na-collect ni Polit. Okay? So gumawa muna siya ng mga themes, no? Tapos nag-assign siya ng code for each theme A, B, C, D. While for each subcategory or sub-theme, nandyan yung 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc., etc. Na kapag binasa yung data, mapapansin na ginamit niya yung A1, B1, A3, D3, D1, C3. This signifies that this part refers to the A1 of this scheme. Likewise, B1 refers to the category B1. Okay? Now, the general analytic procedure for qualitative data is actually a constructionist approach. Kung kanina yung pagmamanage ng data is reductionist, sa qualitative data, pag inanalyze mo na siya, constructionist. Anong ibig sabihin? It means that when you analyze qualitative data, you try to build something new out of what you have reduced. No? Gumagawa ka ng bago out of what you have deduced or reduced, no, in your data. It's like you're weaving, no? Wini-weave mo, naghahabi ka ng ng meanings, no? Kapag ikaw ay nag-a-analyze ng qualitative data. So makikita ninyo doon yung comprehending, no, na part, yung synthesizing, yung theorizing and recontextualizing na 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 qualitative cognitive processes. Okay? So it's like you're making new out of what you have known, no, based on theory and apply it on a larger setting or different setting. So analytic procedure involves content analysis, no? Includes the identification of themes from your data, okay? You discover commonalities, natural variation, okay? And being sensitive to relationships with your data, okay? And useful to develop, this is useful to develop flowcharts or timelines to highlight sequences, major decisions, or events. Now, analysis of qualitative data also involves validation. No? When we say validation, we try to make sure that our interpretation, we try to make sure that our thematic analysis is true, okay, or valid. How do we do that? Some people or some analytic process would require you to go back, no? To go back to your respondents. For example, nag-collect ka ng data from a certain group, inanalyze mo, no? To make sure that your analysis, kasi sarili mo yung interpretation, is true and valid, you have to go back to your respondents and ask them, is this what you mean when you try to say this? If they agreed with your interpretation, then we can say that somehow your data or interpretation or analysis is valid. Okay? Now, here are some qualitative analysis based on the type of study. No? In ethnographic analysis, we use Spratley's method or Leininger's method. While for phenomenology, we use Colysis, Georgis, Van Kam's, Van Manen's, Heideggerian, Dickelman, Allen and Tanner's, and even Benner's method. Or when we do grounded analysis or grounded theory analysis, we use the Glasserian method or the Straussian method. No? Glasserian, which is instituted or initiated by Glasser and Strauss, no, their colleagues. Tapos si Strauss, nagkaroon ng sarili niyang method, nakipag-coordinate kay Corbin, so they had their Straussian and Corbin method. Okay? So let's talk about ethnographic analysis. When we say ethnographic analysis, this is the analysis of data or the analysis of cultural data. Now, in ethnographic analysis, you try to analyze the data as soon as you enter the field. And as soon as you enter the field, You continually search for patterns in the behavior and expressions of study participants. No? Nag-i-immerse ka doon, pag-aaralan mo sila, i-analyze mo ang methods, continually search for patterns in the behavior of your study participants. Until such time na ikaw ay mag-reach ng saturation. Doon ka lang titigil sa observation when you reach saturation. Now, characteristic of Spradley's method are the four levels of data analysis. No? Domain analysis, taxonomic analysis, componential analysis, theme analysis. Okay? Each level corresponds a to the four cognitive processes, no, in qualitative analysis. No? Domain, making sense, no, of the data. Taxonomic, no, pertains to synthesizing. Componential analysis pertains to or is similar to theorizing, while theme analysis, okay, is to recontextualize your findings. Leininger's method has four phases, no, of data analysis. Kasi nga, di ba, we all know Leininger is the proponent of transcultural nursing. So the word itself, culture, she did an ethnographic analysis. Okay? So according to her, we have to collect, describe, and record data. We have to identify and categorize our descriptors. We need to search for repetitive patterns and abstract major themes and present findings. Another type of study that uses unique, no, analysis method is the one that studies the lived experience of people or your phenomenology. Now, it is the goal, no, of phenomenological analysis to find common patterns of experiences shared by particular instances. So the outcome will be to describe the meaning of the experience through essential themes that you have identified. So ganun pa rin. It's like it can be embedded doon sa four cognitive processes na binanggit natin kanina. So here are three major styles, no, in phenomenological analysis. The first one is the one popularized by Colaisi, which is the Colaisis method, which is the analysis and interpretation of your data, qualitative data, and validating it by the use of member checking. Okay? Pag sinabing member checking, ito yung sinasabi natin na kanina na bumabalik tayo, we return to our respondents to validate our interpretation of their own statements. No? So, Colaisis method is characterized by member checking. While George's analysis will rely solely on the researcher's interpretation. No? On the other hand, Van Kamp's method seeks to have or to reach intersubjective agreement with other expert judges. This means that when a researcher interprets the data, the qualitative data, for him or her to achieve intersubjective agreement, that researcher must seek the interpretation of her or his or her peers, nung kanyang mga co-researchers or other researchers, or any other people who has experience in phenomenological analysis. No? That's an intersubjective agreement. That's Van Kamp's method. You try to seek, no, the opinion of other people about your interpretation. And those people are your peers or should be your peers. Van Manen's method includes thematic analysis of lived experience with the use of artistic sources. Okay, tandaan, in Van Manen's method, it uses the lived, it identifies or it gives meaning to the lived experience with the use, no, of artistic sources in analytic strategy. It even uses metaphors. Okay? While Heideggerian hermeneutic refers to the methodologic process to reach understanding through continual movement between parts and whole of the text being analyzed. Sa madaling salita, in Heideggerian hermeneutic circle, dahil circle nga, umiikot ng umiikot ang analysis sa qualitative data. So that when you repeat, you validate the findings. When you repeat reading your findings, you continually develop the themes that you have identified. Okay? In grounded theory analysis, you try to find the fit, no, of your data. You try to find the fit, no, wherein one piece of data is similar, no, to others. So it's like actually comprehending, no, yung kung mapapansin ninyo, iba-iba lang sila ng tawag, pero yung proseso it's still the same. No, in this grounded theory, the fit is actually the scheme, no, coding scheme or the theme that you're trying to look for. Yung fit na iyon, yun yung pinaka-date, yun yung pinaka-term para malaman mo kung yung data yun ay konektado ba sa ibang parts ng qualitative data mo. So that's your fit. It's like your scheme actually. Pareho lang yun. Okay? So there are two methods, no? Two methods. The one is the Glaserian method and the other one is the Straussian method in grounded theory analysis. In Glaserian method, this is what you call your traditional grounded theory method, wherein you try to wherein the researcher will really have to collect data the old-fashioned way. Why does it mean? Why is it important, no, to 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 stress out, no, to emphasize the traditional method of data collection and analysis? It's because when you personally collect your data, kapag ikaw ang nagsulat, if you're the one writing it, if you're the one doing it, you 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 develop, no, some sort of understanding on your data because you are the one processing it, no? Habang ikaw ang gumagawa ng data analysis on your own, you try to make more sense of the data. That's the Glaserian way of grounded theory. While the Straussian way advocates the use, no, of modern technology or other tools, no, to help you understand your data. Okay? So, in Glaserian approach, meron tayong tinatawag na open coding, selective coding, theoretical coding. Okay? Pero sa Straussian method, merong axial coding and selective coding. Okay? When we analyze quantitative data, so we're done with qualitative data analysis. We now go to quantitative data analysis, which involves, no, two major branches of statistics. These include your descriptive stats and your inferential stat. In descriptive stat, the word itself will tell you that you're going to describe your quantitative data. Describe them. It can be achieved by constructing your frequency distribution table. So I know you have your statistics na, and I hope that you still remember on how you conduct or how you develop, no, create your frequency distribution table. Okay, kung saan you tabulate the most frequently occurring frequencies, no, yung mga frequencies or responses, no, ng isang group set ng data. Okay, or data set. Okay? You can also describe your data by identifying, no, the measures of central tendency. Okay? Ito yung mean, yung median, and your mode. No? Mean is your average, as we review, if you will review. Median is the centermost data occurring in an array. No? Pag sinabing array, this is the arrangement of your data, no, either in ascending order or descending order. So before you find the median of a group of data, no, you have to arrange this data in an ascending or descending manner. Then hahanapin mo, after mo ma-arrange, hahanapin mo doon sa dataset na yon yung gitna. So what if yung gitna is between two numbers? Kasi usually sa even numbers walang gitna, no? How do you find the median? You just add, no, the two middlemost values and divide it by 2. So you'll identify the median there. While the mode, no, is the frequently occurring data in a data group set. Okay? Modes can be unimodal, no? Ibig sabihin yung data set mo ay isa lang ang mode. It can be bimodal, dalawa yung mode, ay dalawa yung frequently occurring data, or trimodal or multimodal. Okay? So those are the measures of your central tendency. Okay? While on the other hand, meron din tayong tinatawag na measures of variability o yung pagkakaiba-iba. Meron tayong tinatawag na range, which is the difference between the highest value minus the lowest value. That's your range. Or your standard deviation, no? Or the distance of your values from the mean. Okay? So the most reliable measure of variability is always your standard deviation because it has always a reference to your mean or dun sa gitna ng dataset mo. So usually, the range of standard deviation, yung acceptable standard deviation, is within their positive and negative 2 standard deviations away from the mean. No? Kapag ang standard deviation mo ay tumataas na sa 2, sa 3, no? Pumalo na ng 2 or 3, your data is highly dispersed. So what does it mean when your data is highly dispersed? Your data, no, ay sobrang magkakaiba. Okay? So ibig sabihin, there's a chance na may mali sa pag-collect mo ng data, may chance. May term, may chance. May chance na hindi mo na pagpare-pareho yung characteristics ng respondents mo. Pwedeng ganon. Okay? So your standard deviation is a measurement, no, of how your data is dispersed from the mean, sa gitna. Okay? Other descriptive statistics include bivariate descriptive statistics, contingency tables, cross tabulations, scatter plots, or diagrams. Okay? In inferential statistics, on the other hand, is used, no, to support, no, or find, no, to support your decision making when it comes to your hypothesis. So inferential statistics are statistical tools, no, to help you decide whether or not you will pursue with your research hypothesis or not. There are two forms of inferential statistics. It can be parametric, sabi natin dun sa nakaraang lesson natin, ginagamit natin ang parametric test for data that are in the interval and ratio level of measurement. While non-parametric tests, on the other hand, are used for data that are in the nominal or ordinal level of measurement. Okay? So parametric, ratio, interval, while non-parametric will be for ordinal and nominal data. Now, here is a table of the appropriate, no, or the correct statistical test that you will use based on the test condition and the interval and the level of measurement. So tandaan, interval measurement, lahat ng nandito na nag-fall na exam, statistical test will be parametric tests, while these two columns will be your non-parametric test. Okay? So, statistical test will always revolve around your research question. So you have to understand, for you to employ the correct statistical test, you have to understand what your question is really about. Okay? So if your question is, kaya test condition yan kasi kung ano yung konteksto ng research question mo. If your research question is about the difference between two independent groups, meaning dalawang group, pinagko-compare mo, kapag ka-interval ratio level yan, that's, you're going to use an independent t-test. Independent, tandaan, independent meaning different groups, magkaibang group na hindi konektado sa iisa. Pero if that set of tests ay two set of scores ay magkadugtong, meaning galing sa isang grupo pero magkaibang test, no? Magkaibang measurement as in the pre-test post-test designs. Ang ginagamit diyan is dependent or paired t-test. Okay? So palatandaan, if you're going to use if your question is about two independent groups na hindi related to each other, hindi related, independent, no? T-test. Pero kung yan ay magkarugtong, no, related to each other, dependent on each other, you use a paired t-test. Okay? Now, if those data are in the nominal or ordinal level, meron niyang Fisher's exact test for those two independent groups. Fisher exact test is only used for small group. Ha? Small group meaning nasa 12, no? Hindi lalagpas ng 20. Kasi yung formula ng Fisher exact test, not more than 20 ang ma-accommodate niya. Sir, bakit hindi po pwede kahit naman na nominal data kapag malaking group of data ang ginagamit? Kasi po, madi-distort yung results, no? Madi-distort yung results, making you believe that your results are significant, well in fact, no, na-skew siya, na-distort siya kasi mali yung data or mali yung ginamit mong test statistic. Okay? So ayan, chi-square kung malaki, edi chi-square ang gamitin mo for more than 20. Okay? Pag ordinal data naman yan at difference between two groups, ang gagamitin mo, Mann-Whitney U-test. Okay? So I trust that you will read, you try to understand what's the content of this table. Okay? So I will focus my discussion on the interval ratio. I leave this one for you to read. Okay? For two sets of related scores, sabi ko nga kanina, kapag nasa interval or ratio level, paired t-test. Pero kung difference among groups, tapos independent of each other, you use one-way analysis of variance o yung tinatawag na F-test. Okay? Kung correlation yan, meaning i-correlate mo yung dalawang variables, you use Pearson product moment correlation or the Pearson R for interval or ratio level of measure, chi-square or phi coefficient for nominal data, or Spearman's rank order correlation for ordinal data. Okay? Now, there are also what you call your multivariate statistical analysis, no? Where we use different types of statistical analysis for three or more variables. It can be in the form of multiple regression. No? Pag sinabing multiple regression, it tests the relationship between two or more independent variables and one dependent variable, provided that they are at the interval or ratio level of measure. Or the analysis of covariance, which is used for non-equivalent control group design, because the ANCOVA or analysis of covariance eliminates, no, the effect, okay, of the covariates or the effects of your extraneous variables. Okay? So this is one way to statistically control your extraneous variables, no? The use of your ANCOVA, analysis of covariance. So there are other also multivariate techniques, no? May tinatawag na discriminant function analysis. Okay? It's like multiple regression pero it's on the nominal dependent variable. Meron din tayong tinatawag na logistic regression. Pag sinabing logistic regression, it estimates relative risk, no? Yung odds ratio. Meron din tayong tinatawag na factor analysis, multivariate analysis of variance, no? Causal modeling, no? Yung linear structural relations analysis or your LISREL, okay? Where you try to predict, no, a linear structure or a linear relation, okay? Now, with all of these statistical tests, with all the mambo jumbo, no, in statistical testing, why do we need, no, statistical testing? Because it is important, no, to support, no, our decision making in hypothesis. Kumbaga, niraran mo yung statistic to test whether your hypothesis is significant or not. When we say that your results are statistically significant, it means that the obtained results are not likely to have been due to chance fluctuation. Hindi mo nakuha yung results na yon by chance. Meron talagang relationship, difference, or kung ano man yung tinest mo. Okay? So what are the conditions that would tell you, or the values that will tell you that your results are statistically significant? No? If, number one, if your computed probability level or yung p-value, I know na na-encounter nyo na to sa inyong research critique na activity in RLE, kapag na-encounter nyo yung p-value is less than the desired level of significance. No? What is the desired level of significance? Usually makikita, it is usually set at 0.05, no? For studies uh, that are not dangerous, no, to the lives of people, or 0.01 or 0.01, no, yung mas manipis pa. Okay, so if anything is less than that, okay, if your p-value is less than that, the level of significance, we can say that you have a statistically significant result. Kaya minsan hindi naman pine-present yung p-value. Okay? Minsan pine-present yung computed value ng test statistic, no? Minsan pine-present yung t-value, okay? Tapos if you still remember your statistic class, your statistics prof would tell you, oh, compare this computed value to the tabled value in your in the appendix section of your statistics book. Okay? So if you still remember that, then good. If your computed value is greater than the table value, we can say that your results are statistically significant. Kabaliktaran naman iyon ng non-significant result. Okay? Pag sinabing non-significant result, the observed differences or relationship could have been a result of chance fluctuation. Yun naman. So how can you say that your results are not significant? If your computed probability level or your p-value is greater than the desired level of significance. No? Or, kung hindi naman provide ang p-value, if the p-value is not provided but you see, no, that the computed test statistic value, any value less than the tabled value will make your results not significant. However, don't fret, no, if your results are not significant. It does not mean that your results, no, are walang kwenta or are useless. Okay? Even though that your results are not significant, no, it still shows the value of your work. Lalo na kung pinaghirapan niyo yung research. No, it shows the value of your work. It also shows that there are some variations, no, from what is observed. So non-significant values are actually uh, not a measure of a successful research, but rather not significant values, no? Meron pa rin naman tayong makukuhang aral doon sa research na iyon. Okay? So yun nga lang, kailangan pag-igihan, no, ang implication nito ng non-significant result is that we try to improve the study in the future. Okay? So that we eliminate any extraneous variable that may have affected our non-significant result. Now, statistical testing is also a way, no, to prevent type 1 and type 2 errors. When we say type 1 error, this is the chance, no, or this is an error wherein we reject, no, a true hypothesis. Okay? When we reject a true hypothesis. While type 2 error is an error when we accept, no, a false hypothesis. Which of the two is dangerous in healthcare research? Let's have this example. On the left side, the type 1 error is the false positive error. Okay? You reject a true hypothesis. Okay? So it's like saying to a man that you are pregnant. Okay? That's type 1 error, a false positive. While on the other hand, sa type 2 error, yung false negative, okay, is you when you accept a false hypothesis or having a false negative. When we say to our patient, no, pregnant patient, that you're not pregnant. So which one is more dangerous? By the words of it, when you accept a false hypothesis. It's more life-threatening when it comes to healthcare research to accept a false hypothesis. So to prevent this, we have to establish a level of significance or a probability of making a type 1 error. So usually this is set at around 5%, 1%, no? 5% or 1%, no? It means that there's 5% chance, no, that we make a type 1 error. Okay? Or we're saying that 95% of the time we're sure that the results are accurate. Type 2 error can be prevented, no, by establishing, no, the beta or the power analysis. This is usually set at around 80%. Okay? 80%. Now, in statistical reporting, we have to recognize, no, which test was used, the actual value of the calculated statistic, the degrees of freedom, and the level of statistical significance. So for example, so this one identifies the test, the t-test. In t-test, ang kinocompute is yung t value. Okay? In t-test, you also determine the degree of freedom. Okay? And the p-value or the level of statistical significance. This value is greater than 0.05. So therefore, this value is or can be deduced na non-significant yung results. Okay? Now, once we're done with inferential statistics, we proceed now to the different methods of presenting your data. The most commonly used method of presenting data is your tabular presentation. So in tabular presentation, iti-table mo yung large amount of data to summarize your quantitative data. Just remember, when you create your table, you have to include the title of the table. Okay? In naming your table, always name your table by number. Okay? As it appears in your research or in your text. By APA convention, no? Hindi na po tayo nag-decimal number or numbering ng tables. We present our tables, no, in whole numbers. So dapat yan, kung first table ito, table 1 dapat ang title. Table 2, table 3, table 4, hanggang matapos. That's the ATA convention. Now, your table should also contain column headings. Okay? Your tables should also contain row headings. Ito yung row heading. Okay? And this one's the row heading. This is the column heading. Your table should also contain legends. No? Legends. At kung may missing data na hindi pa nakukuha, you have to identify, no? You have to identify or signify it with a dash. No? Don't leave blank. Huwag iwanang blanco yung inyong data because it means na baka it would mean na hindi nakuha ng data or hindi tama ang pagkakapresent ng data. You have to place a dash, no? So that it will signify na walang laman, walang data tungkol doon. Okay? And you also include the source, no? The source of your data. Okay? Now, in APA format also, ang nilalagyan lang po ng header, ng lining ay hindi yung buong table. Okay? Ng table borders. Ang nilalagyan lang ng table borders will be, no, the line above the column heading and the line below the column heading. Yung in between, wala. And the last part, no, nalalagyan lang ng lining will be the bottom row, no? Bottom row. Okay? So that's tapos yung sa gilid wala pong linya in APA format of tabular presentation. Okay? Now, there are other types of table, no? We have the frequency distribution table wherein you tabulate, no, yung mga frequencies ng inyong table. I hope you still remember how to construct your frequency distribution table, no? Wherein you try to develop your class size, class midpoint, the number, the cumulative frequency, the relative frequency, and the cumulative frequency of that relative frequency. Okay? I hope you still remember constructing frequency distribution tables. You can also decide to present your data graphically. So what's the usual thing, no? Usual method of presenting data. Most researchers present their data in tabular form. So if you use tabular form, on one part of your research paper, you use tabular form all throughout. But if you use graphical presentation on one part of your paper, no, you have to present your data graphically all throughout your papers. Okay? So consistency is the key. But for the sake of consistency nga, no, I will require you to present your data in your research using the tabular presentation. Okay? So here are some graphical presentation of your data. It can be a bar graph, a chart, or diagram, no, which is used to compare absolute or relative counts. So, yung number or bilang or relative count rate between categories of qualitative or discrete quantitative variable, ang ginagamit po doon is bar graph. Now, if you want to show your data in relation to time, yung absolute count in relation to time, gagamit ka ng bar graph pero naka-horizontal dapat. Okay? Kasi we have a thinking that time moves forward. So it has to be in a horizontal method so that you present your data, no, in relation to time. So madaling intindihin na time ang pine-present nito. Pag vertical bar graph, we use vertical bar graph, no, if we want to compare absolute or relative count. Okay? Now, If we have pie chart, no, we use pie chart when we try to break down a group or total where the number of categories is not too many. Okay? So in presenting your pie chart, you have to present first, no, the largest chunk of your data and present it in a clockwise fashion. Okay? In a clockwise fashion. Always last pine-present sa pie chart yung others na data. Later on, I will show you. No, yung others na data. Okay? Kahit na malaki yung chunk niya compared dun sa iba, the others will always be presented last. No? So, ang manner of presentation is pie chart also. Ng pie chart is clockwise also. So, pwede mo rin namang i-present yung pie chart mo by using a component bar diagram. No? A component bar diagram is a is a chart wherein you plot it like a bar graph, pero hahatiin mo yung bar graph. Okay? Other types of graphical presentation include histogram, the use of histogram, or which is used for frequency distribution, no, to chart frequency distribution. We can also use frequency polygon, which is the same as histogram. No, lilinyahan mo lang kung kung ano ang itsura ng histogram mo. And line diagram, which trends your data or changes with time or age with respect to some variables. While scatter plots or scatter points or dot diagram or scatter diagram is used to correlate your data of two quantitative variables. So here are examples of your data. So this one is horizontal bar graph. Notice na yung nandito sa x-axis, yung horizontal axis, represents the time or the life expectancy in years. No? And these are the countries. So it presents the data, the absolute or relative count of your data based on the countries across a span of time. While on the other hand, this is your histogram, no? Or the which shows the distribution of infants according to the number of illness episodes for the year Municipality X 1994. No? So the number of babies, number of illness episodes, kung ilang beses nagkasakit, no? It presents it here. So we can deduce na ang pinakamarami yung 4 na beses nagkasakit noong 1994. Another one is this is an example of your pie chart, no? In pie chart, it shows you the 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 number of maternal deaths, no, by main causes, no? Ito po siya. So yung the largest chunk should go first, no? Dito itong chart na to ay may mali. So dapat sumunod sa kanya is abortion, I don't know, hypertension. Sumunod sa kanya is abortion, followed by pregnancy-related hemorrhage, and the last one will be your other causes. Kahit na 26% pa man yan. Always remember, when you present your data in chart, in graphics, no, you have to name or to give title to your data or to give title to your graph, no, the title of your graph, and include the word figure, then the number of that figure. Okay? Again, APA convention would require you to name your figures in whole numbers. No, hindi na po uso yung figure 8.4, figure 8.5, no? You have to name it ng dire-diretso, figure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ganon. And you have to place the figure label at the bottom of the figure. Pagka-title ng table, dapat sa taas. Okay? So here's an example of component bar diagram. It's similar to your pie chart, pero it's like your it's a bar graph pero may hati ng component, no? Now, in presenting component bar diagrams or pie graphs, you have to show the breaks, no, in data para alam kung saan nahahati yung data nung whole. Okay? So that the differences are prominent, no? Conspicuous kapag binasa. Here's an example of frequency polygon. So, nilinyahan lang, no, yung frequency distribution or yung frequency polygon histogram, no. It's actually a histogram na ginuhitan at present into a shape, no. Kasi kapag ka histogram puro square, puro bar, but in frequency polygon it's like a histogram pero nilinyahan yung trend niya, no, in such a way na magfo-form siya ng polygon. So this is your histogram. And this is a line diagram which shows the trend, no, of your data, an upward, downward trend, no, and the spike, no, over a course of time. Okay? And also a scatter plot diagram which shows, no, which shows your data, no, the trend of your data between two variables. So this one, this scatter plot is about the age and the diastolic pressure, no, or diastolic blood pressure of the person, no. So kung mapapansin, the trend of your data here is upward, no. Habang tumatanda, tumataas ang diastolic blood pressure. So this reflects a direct relationship between two of your variables. So an upward trend, no, is a direct relationship, while a downward trend, no, a downward trend from here going to here signifies an inverse relationship, no? Pag sinabing inverse relationship, if one variable increases, the other one decreases, or vice versa, no? That's an inverse relationship. Okay? Now, once you're done with your discussion, with your data presentation, you have to write a summary, no, of your research findings. In writing your summary of research findings, you have to address the key results that are important and directly related to your research question. It includes unexplained results that stood out as meaningful. Kasi minsan may mga results na na-encounter ka na hindi mo naman talaga dapat pag-aaralan pero may kahulugan yung findings na iyon. Okay? And you also include some discussion, okay? Which includes, no, a debate on the possible meaning of the study results and giving meaning of the findings, no, and the interpretation within the context of existing knowledge. So in discussion part, it also involves comparison ng results with previous studies. So sa discussion, dalawang task, no? Dalawang task ang usual na ginagawa. It can be in the form of confirmation, meaning verify mo yung results with other studies, or pwede rin naman na nagsuspeculate ka, no? Or a process, or which involves a process of reflecting on the results of the study and offering explanation of them. So, you try to explain why this happened, no? Pero syempre dapat yung explanation mo rooted pa rin in scientific evidence. Okay? And lastly, you need to develop your conclusion. Now, your conclusion is a decision about the knowledge gained from the study, given its fit with other studies and theories. So when you conclude your study, you have to connect, no, yung sasabihin mo doon sa conclusion with existing studies and theories similar to yours. Okay? Now, you have to word your conclusion cautiously or carefully because this will make or break, no, the outcome of your research. Always consider the limitations that when you write your research conclusion. Okay? And include your conceptualization or generalization about it. Okay? And lastly, also include recommendation for building knowledge about clinical question. Okay? So, Here are some when you're done, no, when you are going to uh, here are some reminders, no, when you try to speculate on your findings and connect it with your findings as well, no, with when you try to create when you try to make sense, no, doon sa data at sa interpretation na ginawa mo, you have to connect it with recent studies. And for you to connect it with research studies, no, na nag-exist in the literature, in your searches, dapat you are able, or you can do, research critique. No? When you do research critique, this refers to your careful appraisal of the merits and flaws of a research to draw conclusion about the worth of the evidence and significant to nursing. No? So there are three main types, no, of research critique. It can be a student critique. Pag sinabing student critique, it's just to assess, no, your skills, no, in appraising research. Okay? Like identifying the problem, like identifying the methodology, the research sampling technique, no, and the data collection method, etc. When we say peer review critique, no, this is intended for publication, no. Now, if your research has undergone a peer review process, you're actually submitting your paper to a refereed journal. So, ibig sabihin ng refereed journal, these are journals that are moderated, no, by reviewers so that quality output will be published. Okay? Critique can also come in the form of meta-analysis or meta-synthesis to evaluate the strength of related studies. Now, when you're doing research critique, it can be a combination of these dimensions, no? Meaning you look into a research in these following dimensions when you do a research critique. It can be, number one, a substantive and theoretical perspective. Ibig sabihin, tinitignan mo yung laman, no? Yung content. Okay? You examine the contents and the substance of the research. That's your substantive pala, and theoretical research critique dimension. When you try to examine the methods, the research design, no, the research sampling method, kung tama ba siya o hindi, you're looking at the dimension of methodological or methodology. So, that's it. If you examine, no, what ethical principles are violated or if ethical principles are followed in the research, you're doing, no, or you're looking at the ethical dimension. If you're examining how the researchers interpreted the results, you are looking, no, in the interpretative dimension. But if you look, no, if you look on how the researchers presented their data, okay, and their styles in writing, kung first person ba, second person, third person, that's a presentation and stylistic dimension. Now, why do we need to critique data, no, to critique research? Aside from connecting it to our papers, we also need to critique research because we want to use that. Okay? So the act of using research findings is actually called a research utilization. No? You try to use these findings, no, to evaluate your own practice. It can be direct, no, yung direct mong gagamitin, or indirect, conceptual or persuasive utilization. So when you utilize it, you develop your own EBP or your evidence-based practice. Okay? Where this is the paradigm where you try to practice your profession that is rooted in research evidence. Okay? So here are some activities in research utilization or EBP project or doing an EBP project. Okay? So here are some barriers, no, to research utilization and evidence-based practice in nursing. It can be a research-related barrier. Pag sinabing research-related barrier, sometimes the research is too complicated. No? The research is too complicated to be understood by nurses. Kasi not all nurses can easily understand, no, research findings. No, nagkaka-jargon, hindi magamit, okay? Hindi maintindihan, so hindi nagagamit yung research findings into practice. It can be a nurse-related barrier. Pag sinabing nurse-related barrier, the nurse herself or himself is doesn't want to use the research finding because bago yun eh. Well, all research findings when introduced into practice are change agents, no? But we all know that the initial reaction to change will always be resistance, no? So if the nurse refuses, no, to use the research finding to practice, no, to translate it into his practice, then that's a nurse related barrier. Okay? Kadalasan dito sa EINC, no, na kung ano yung nakasanayan ng nurse na gawin sa loob ng delivery room, yun ang gagawin niya kasi nakasanayan niya na yun. Kahit ilang beses mo pang sabihin sa kanya na may EINC na, iba na dapat yung ganito, etc., etc. That's a nurse-related barrier in using research findings to improve delivery of babies. Okay? It can also be organization-related, meaning at the whole scope of the organization, nire-resist yung evidences, research evidence. That's a barrier. It can also be a barrier, no, na organization related yung mga finances to implement the findings. Minsan kulang ang pondo para gamitin yung research na ito. Minsan wala pang nare-request na budget para sa research na ito or para gamitin ang findings ng research na ito sa practice natin sa hospital. That's an organization related barrier. While the nursing profession related are those barriers pertaining to the regulators, no, of our nursing profession. Okay? So for example, merong bagong finding, no, pero ni-resist ng PRC Board of Nursing. That's a nursing profession related barrier. Okay? So for us nurses, we have a role in using research evidence. No? Number one, we have to read widely and critically. Okay? We also have the responsibility to attend professional conferences because in these conferences we can find uh, emerging researches that could guide our practice in nursing. Okay? We also have to learn, no, to expect evidence that a procedure is effective. We can become involved in journal clubs or pursue and participate in RUEBP projects. The last slide talks about, no, the budget, no, that we also need to plan when we will do our research project. Now, the first type of budget is what you call your personal budget or the budget that you allocate for manpower. Okay? So the sahod, the stipend of your research assistants or your co-researchers, no? Ika-classify yan it will be classified under personal budget. No? Any expenses that pertain to maintenance and operating will be classified under MOE o yung tinatawag na maintenance and operating expenses. For the acquisition of new, no, for the acquisition of new equipment, no, new gadgets, no, new materials, that will be classified under capital outlay, while those administrative overhead, meaning yung mga expenses, no, na ginagamit siya pero hindi madaling mapansin na expense pala 'yon, no? What are those? For example, meron kayong pamasahe na hindi ninyo na emergency, no, or hindi naman emergency, mga pamasahe na kailangan nakataksi kayo. Pero siyempre, kahit na kahit na napagplanuhan mo na siya, minsan may mga bagay na hindi mo na foresee. Yung mga hindi mo na foresee, you have to account it, no, in your budget, no? Kaya nilalagay natin siya in administrative overhead, no? Overhead meaning yung mga na-miss out mo, no? Yung na-overhead mo. So it's around 10 to 15%, no, of your item number one, personal budget, or item number two, your MOE. While your contingency fund or your emergency fund should always be around 5 to 10% of your personnel and your maintenance and operating budget. Always remember that your budget in research usually comes around the ratio of 40-60. 40% for the personal budget, 60% will be allotted for MOE budget. Okay? Yung capital outlay, yung administrative overhead, at saka yung contingency fund will be additional items. Okay? Now, another important thing, no, lalo na kapag ikaw ay nagsisik ng funding, kailangan magkaroon ka ng Gantt chart, no? Or a chart where you plot the progress, no, the proposed progress of your research, no? So it includes an objective, no, an activity, and a timetable, and even the expected output of your objective. So ipa-plot mo in the Gantt chart kung gaano katagal gagawin ang isang activity, gaano katagal ma-achieve ang isang objective, no? At ano yung dapat na makitang output out of that activity so that you can monitor properly. That ends my lecture for this week. I hope you learned something from me. If you have any questions, you can always send me a messenger message, no? And you can always start a discussion with me or with your classmates in our Facebook group. Have a nice week.